Jules for coming, because you guys are the youngest members here tonight, and Rory, thank you so much for coming too. So I hope you enjoy. It's a movie about a foreigner, sounds familiar, who comes to America to live out her version, a very skewed version it turns out, of the American dream, one that is based on movies rather than a reality. I, like Olive, am a foreigner who came to the United States to live out my version of the American dream, and here I am. But it was very much inspired by movies, mostly from the 1930s and the 1970s, and so I gave myself a very challenging task of trying to marry these two eras in filmmaking. So there you go, see if that worked in some way or not. Thank you so much to the festival for having us here. You have no idea how much this means to us, and the movie comes out October 12th in the United States. Thank you.
Oh, well, actually, first and foremost, for those of you that weren't aware, this was shot in Oklahoma, and what great locations, my God. I mean, like, from every little thing, even the little soda shop with the blinking. You want to talk a little bit about finding some of those locations?
Yeah, that was, you know, the wonderful thing about shooting in Oklahoma is because I'd been there a couple of times already. I had a head start. I had seen a lot of the locations, and Mary had been really helpful. Mary Freitas had been really helpful in finding some of the locations and helping us get some of them. And so had Kent, who got us the courthouse. And so normally you start, you know, you have just in the pre-production period, a very, very small period of time to do this. But because I had a head start, I really got some of that out of the way. And it was so important for us to, or for me really, to visually have everything the way I had imagined it. I'd made a director's book with photographs, all art photographs from like Eggleston's and Robert Frank's and all of that, to sort of illustrate what I wanted things to look like. And so it was just really important to me that visually the film was going to not just look like any other independent, but just something, its own unique thing. And we had 20 days to shoot it, and it was very hot in Oklahoma, 105 degrees in August. So, yeah.
Yeah, we know a little something about hot weather here. So if some of you guys want to move up to the front, you're more than welcome to. We've got plenty of seats up here. We've actually got a whole front row here. So
Rory back yet?
We'll find we'll find Rory and we'll get him up here as soon as we can. But and what a great cast. I mean, a great mix of people. I mean, not just Mila, but Bill Pullman and Marcia Cross. And talk a little bit about finding Spencer as well on this.
Yeah, finding a child actor when you don't have a casting director other than the local casting director in Oklahoma is challenging, because I knew nothing about child actors, and neither did my producing partner, Sophia Sondervan. And so we just tried to watch movies and tried to see what was coming out and talk to people. And so finally we got in touch with a child agency, and they started sending us some photographs of people and whatever. And then out of my apartment in New York, I ended up casting it. And Spencer was the first kid to walk through the door. And I knew right away he had the part. He was so exactly the way I had imagined it. So it was just really lucky that way. But it took a long time. It sounds really easy, but it took a long time.
Yeah. I want you guys to be thinking about questions, because we are eventually going to take some questions from the audience. I did want to talk about, in a film like this, that it kind of walks a fine line on the balance of, sort of comedy, drama. There's a little bit of everything in there. What was that? Were there some conscious decisions made in terms of, where to hold back and where to just go really broad with it, especially with Rory's characters? Rory gets a lot of, pretty much all the laughs in the movie, and I'm sure whenever he gets back, we'll talk to him about it. So, but yeah, can you talk a little bit about, finding that balance there?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said in the introduction, the film was really influenced by two different eras in filmmaking. The 30s, which tend to be a little bit more, over the top and much more comedy. But also, one of the main reasons for the 30s influence was because women really ruled cinema at that time, and they were allowed to be funny and smart and complex and intelligent and all that in a way that I don't find they can be anymore today. And then the 70s were a really big influence, and that's of course a very different time in filmmaking with realism and specific cinematography and all that. And so the idea was always to bring them together, but also because many movies influenced this film, and just to name a few, like Bonnie and Clyde and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and Harold and Maude and Thelma and Louise and all these types of movies that very much have like an Oklahoma feel to it in a way, but also very much the idea of two people who are outsiders who do things that we know are illegal, but we love them anyway. We also know they're sitting on a time bomb and something's going to happen. And so in this case, Olive was always meant to be somebody who, and we're really seeing the world through her eyes in the beginning, who is, like I said, living out a very skewed idea of what the American dream is. But if you grow up watching movies, you would have a very different understanding of what America is like than the reality. And so I wanted to play with that in the beginning, seeing the world through her eyes as the way she had seen it in films, which was, you know, everything was exaggerated color-wise and all of that. But then, of course, once real life hits you and you get caught doing the things that, you know, you've seen people doing on films and they seem to be getting away with murder, but then life catches up and realism comes and kicks in. And so that's when at that very moment I had written that song in the movie Cat Stevens' Trouble, which is actually in Harold and Maude, which is one of my great influences in film of all time. And so it always was meant to be there, but that's kind of the switching point. And, you know, all the films that I just referenced tonally had something similar in the sense that Bobby has it. And they were criticized particularly for that reason too, it turns out. Because I had the luxury of just having had lunch with the writer of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and they slaughtered his movie. They slaughtered Harold and Maude when it came out. They slaughtered Bonnie and Clyde. They all had to re-release all of these films because tonally people were confused. And I think, to me, I look at independent film and I feel that should be a way where you can express yourself in different ways, and not only by studio rules, in that it has to have a stamp on it where it immediately is either a particular genre film or comedy or drama. I find life is confusing. I've laughed at many funerals. I hate to say it, but that's what happens. Out of darkness comes lightness and the other way around. So I wanted to play around with those things.
Well, and I love how there's kind of this interesting dichotomy with Mila's character, in that, like the Christmas tree on the car, and just how she doesn't even perceive, or she doesn't even process that her child is doing all these awful things when the teacher comes and tells her. It's like she's just completely out of touch with what the norm is, but she just loves her son so much it doesn't really matter, and that's what makes it so interesting. So
Rory's back.
Rory's back. Let's get Rory Cochrane on up here, ladies and gentlemen. Without the fake mustache. Good job, sir. Yes.
Very much.
Let's pass it. I'm going to pass it over.
Hi, guys. I don't really know what to say other than I had to go to the bathroom because you know, things happen when you watch a movie and they're yeah, right. But anyway, I'm very proud of Famke. It's very difficult to write and direct a movie and get it made, and, you know, actually get it, on top of it, a distribution deal, which she's got. So I think we should give her a hand.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think she was kind of touching on before was that, you know, that films are independent films. I think that what attracts us to them, what attracts you guys to them, is that, you know, it's not the just run-of-the-mill popcorn fluff thing that you know you're going to get, you know, and your franchise, big, huge, I don't know, popcorn thing, but it's you know, there's different parts of it that some guy just said something to me when I was going to the bathroom. You know, he said something that affected him in some way, but it was something that I would never have thought of. You know, and I think that there's parts of these independent films that touch people in a way, and I think that's what we strive to do. And I think that I'm very proud of my friend Famke for striving to do that.
Thank you. Stop now.
I just want to commend you guys, because I don't know how many people realize this, but you said that was shot in 20 days. and in 105-degree weather as well. That's amazing to get something like that done in 20 days. So, all right, I'm sure you guys have questions, so if you guys want to raise your hands, we'll try to call on you one at a time, and we'll see if we can get to everybody. Who wants to be the first question? Right over here. Gary.
Okay. It's very difficult to go from acting to directing, and it's even more difficult for a female to become a director. How do you go over those two hurdles in Hollywood?
I mean, I can add a few hurdles before that. I was a model, I was in a Bond movie, Bond girl. I was in an 3 X-Men movies, I was a superhero, you know. I mean, yes, there are some hurdles along the way, and to me, I only see them as challenges, and I want to grow and learn as a person. So I think that, you know, the only way I can see it is that if you have to work really hard and never give up. That's one thing I learned a long time ago already as an actor, is you just can never give up. Because most of the time people think you're, you know, as an actor, I got all the things. I was too tall, I was too foreign, I was too exotic. I was like, come to Holland, see how exotic that is. But, you know, it's just, you just learn to deal with these things, prejudices that people have against you. And I knew going into it that they're, you know, for women writer directors, I mean, they're certainly not in the studio system. In the outside, in the independent circuit, you see them. But it's much harder for us still to enter the studio system for whatever reason. And so, to me, I just get excited, you know? I get to do something, I get to prove people wrong. I think that's been part of my drive for a long time is, you know, just to learn, to grow, and to try to achieve what sometimes seems impossible, I guess. I hope that answers.
Anybody else? Right.
Well, I just thought some of the costume and the fashion sort of explored some different characters, like the mismatched socks on your son. Some of your outfits was pretty amazing. So, can you touch a little bit about how you came to some of those decisions and what they reflected on the characters?
For those in the back that can't hear, asking about costuming in the movie and decisions on getting to that.
Yeah, the film was really imagined a long time ago, you know, when after, you know, writing the script or whatever and coming up with this book. The book was instrumental in everything. Trying to get the financing to show people that, you know, I wasn't just a script and I wasn't just some bad idea that maybe, you know, some actor had or whatever. It was really seriously thought out. And in the book, there was everything. Photographs of actually the cover of the book there are 2 different socks, like a boy's leg showing with 2 different socks, and that was very much the idea of Bobby to me, of how he dressed, and Olive, very specific ideas of like her fashion had to be some type of statement that had to do with the movies that she had grown up watching and the actresses that she had admired, you know, growing up in American film and all of that. So they came into play that way. And so in production design wise, for cinematography, everything. So that book really kind of I used as a guideline for every one of the heads of production that I worked with. And then, of course, you go from there, because that's the wonderful thing about a collaboration, is that you show them, you know, the ideas that you have, and then you start talking and collaborating, and then out of that grows something even bigger than you ever dare to dream of.
Right over here, let's go with the gray shirt, and then I'll come to you next, okay?
Being your first time behind the camera, what was the first thing that you weren't ready for?
For those in the back who can't hear, first thing that she wasn't ready for being their first time behind the camera.
Actors. I'm sorry, but this is, you know, the thing about, no, and this is not Rory. It's just that I realized as an actor what you are is you're a sensitive human being. And that's a wonderful thing. And it's hard to go through life like that, but it's a wonderful thing, and you really need it as an actor. But the moment you become a director, you have to leave that behind. You have to become tough in a way that I just wasn't. You have to say to people, you know what? I'm sorry you're hot, or I'm sorry that, you know, you want to play it like that, but it just doesn't work for the scene right now, and we have 5 seconds to just do it. Like I couldn't say that stuff, but sometimes I felt like I needed to say these things, because it is a race against time when you have 20 days to shoot an entire feature, and we had a lot of hurdles along the way, from weather to money falling out to, I mean, just everything that could go wrong went wrong. And so you realize like one thing can really make you have to cut an entire scene. So I think that you imagine things, you know, you write the screenplay, you have to come up with all the, you know, pre-production, like getting the locations and all that, and then you start working and it's like, oh right, there's actors. And they have their ideas too, and things are going much slower than what I imagined. So it's not that I have anything against actors, obviously I am one. It was just the one part that I thought I would be the most prepared for, and in some way I was the least prepared for it.
And let's go right here.
I really enjoyed your characterization of the South, and I'm not exactly sure exactly what state it was supposed to be in, but there's definitely a lot of Southern elements to it. You know, Tommy Lee Jones and the Bible thumper next door and everything. Was there anything in particular that drew you to the South as a setting point?
Yeah, I mean the movie it is Oklahoma, and we shot in Oklahoma, and the movie was set in Oklahoma. We wanted to shoot it in Oklahoma because it was inspired by a visit to my in-laws. My boyfriend's from Oklahoma, and the first time I went there, I thought it was such a different and magnificent. I know you guys are laughing because I heard just now before the screening there's a thing between Texas and Oklahoma, so I know all about it. But it was, I guess it just really reminded me of movies like Bonnie and Clyde and Butch Cassidy and Sundance, all of those movies, and it just had, so then Cole and I started talking about, like, you know, what is it like when you're a foreigner and you come to the United States, but your ideas are really formed by movies rather than, you know, really knowing what it's like to be in a country. And then if you couple that with sort of trying to pursue the American dream, what do you get? And that kind of, the idea became bringing up Bobby. But yeah, it was always meant to be Oklahoma, but at the same time it was meant to have this kind of timeless feel, like it could be any time period, it could be really anywhere, but it's the United States outside of the big cities.
I wanted to ask you about two other locations in particular, the house, first of all, Kent's house, and then the wonderful, wonderful caboose that Walt lives in. If you could talk a little bit about kind of finding those and shooting in something like that as well.
Rory's going to tell you all about shooting in the caboose because it was 145 degrees in that caboose, I think. But yeah, but the caboose really came from Harold and Maude. Maude lives in a caboose in Harold and Maude, and it was too predictable to put Walt in a trailer. We'd seen that in many other movies before, but getting the caboose, on the other hand, was a real challenge, because finding a caboose that is sitting someplace where it's not in the museum or something, and you can actually use it to shoot in, that was really a challenge finding it. But ultimately we got it through the museum. They moved it for us down the tracks, and it was perfect until the day that we came to the location, and somebody had decided, thinking they were doing us a favor, to mow everything that was, the whole idea was that it had this wild feel to it, with grass, overgrown grass and whatever. It was gone, all gone, because they'd mowed it. And so I was mortified, thinking, oh my God, how are we gonna make this look like this trailer's really been sitting there for a really long time? So it was just about shooting between, you know, putting like twigs around, doing things and shooting it that way. But yeah, Rory, please continue about the caboose, your favorites.
You know, it was very hot and unpleasant. I don't know what else to say. You know, when you're filming an independent movie, they don't have a lot of air conditioning. They'll give you Gatorade. That's a great thing. You want a Gatorade? No, I want to go home. But yeah, no, we did that and that was fun. Yeah.
You see why I wrote this part for Rory.
Let's go. Remember, Steven Spielberg, I believe, once said, "Pain is temporary, film is forever." I think that was it. Right over here.
Question for both of you, really. On independent films, sometimes it feels like you give the actor more leeway to improvise or to kind of get out of the realm of an actor in a big film, because you have to do a be accepted by everybody, every man. Do you feel like doing independent films allows you as an actor to kind of do things a little differently or open up a little bit more?
Rory, you want to talk about that? Rory was the only one who was allowed to improvise on set.
Yeah, I think that you have a little more leeway when you do independent films, because I feel like it's more of a collaboration with the filmmaker and the actors, usually. When you get on a movie that's $100 million movie, you know, things are pretty tight, you know. The schedule might be a lot looser, but they're a little more, you know, they think their things are Shakespeare, you know, at that point.
Okay. Yeah, no, in terms of improvisation, when you have 20 days, you just don't have time to mess around to see if something's going to work or not. I had written the part for Rory, so I tried as best as I could to imagine his voice and what would make things funny and whatever. And then, of course, Rory comes to set and makes it funnier because he can improvise. But the other people were not allowed to improvise just because we still would be there shooting right now. Not that they're bad at it, it's just that you don't have time for these things. And I've known Rory for so long, we've been friends for so long. I can work with him, and I know his, you know, I know he gets my humor, I get his humor, and so that really helped. And he's really supposed to be the comic relief of the movie.
Okay, we've got one right here, this gentleman in the blue shirt, and I'll come to you next, sir.
When I saw Mila's name in the program notes, I was intrigued and immediately thought of the Fifth Element, but she turned out to be a really good choice in this role. Can you talk about how she was cast?
For those that maybe didn't hear it, how was Mila Jovovich cast?
Well, casting of a movie, especially when it comes to the lead of a film, as much as we want just to make independent movies and do it for the art of it, ultimately, and I think these are really good lessons to learn, it's a business, and you need to sell your movie and you need to please your investors. So the list was short. We had a very short list of women who were foreign, who meant something to our foreign sales agent, to our investors, and so she was on that, and we were lucky enough to get her. But without her, the movie wouldn't have been made, because that's how it works. You know, it's not just, oh, I have this dream, I'm gonna pluck somebody from the street and put them on, you know, in this part. It doesn't work like that. It's about money, and I understand it. I understand it really well. I'm a producer on the movie too. It's, you know, you wanna make sure you make your investors their money back. It's extremely important. I wanna make my next movie. I wanna say, I made this first movie, I made everybody their money back, and now I'm starting the next one. Who wants to invest? You know, it just works like that. But casting is a really interesting part of it, of the whole process, and the financial part another, but you try to mix them as best as you can.
And then right here.
Oh, one thing about Mila, she does sing the song in the beginning of the movie, Proud Mary. She sings it in Ukrainian. I asked her to do it, and she was nice enough to do that for me. And the end song is done by the Flaming Lips, a band from Oklahoma, and it's Amazing Grace, and I don't know how it got them to do it, but they did it phonetically in Ukrainian, and they never spoke a word of Ukrainian before that. Initially, the idea was to get Wayne from the Flaming Lips and Mila to do Proud Mary together, but he did not like the idea. And then I thought I'd lost him and he wasn't going to do it anymore. And then one day we'd been editing the film and trying all sorts of things for the end song, and it was always meant to have this marry the Oklahoma feel of, you know, the very Americana kind of music with the Ukrainian Russian aspect in the beginning and the end. So we do it in the beginning with Proud Mary, and in the end we just tried different things, and it just nothing worked. And I was like, what if we do Amazing Grace? And then it became really kind of too on the nose and whatever. And then one day I just texted Wayne and I said, you know, the lead singer of the Flaming Lips, I said, how about Amazing Grace in Ukrainian? And within seconds he texted me back going, I love it. Oh my God, how did that just happen? So then I thought, he's just saying that and I never hear from him again, but he did it. They found somebody in Oklahoma to teach them how to sing this phonetically in Ukrainian, and they did it.
Amazing. Right over here, sir.
What happened to Kent and Mary's son?
What happened to Kent and Mary's son?
Yes, it's something that I know. I just didn't feel that for the story that I mean, I purposely left it out. I could have put it in, but I purposely left it out because I thought it's one of those things that, honestly, in the end, that piece of information, knowing exactly what the cause of his death was, does it add anything to the movie? Does it somehow make the, and I just thought it's more that it's this mystery, you know, like Olive never answers the question at the end of the movie when the detective asks her, what on earth happened? You know, how did you get to become like this? I felt that these things cheapened it in some way. I feel that life is not that beautifully summed up, and it somehow doesn't explain who we are exactly if we give these details away. We know that Olive had a troubled past, and that's really, you know, that she had a bad relationship with her father, and other than that, I think does it really matter exactly what happens to better understand her? To me, it didn't, but then I'm really about leaving things out rather than putting them in and having an audience member. Just in the way when you read a novel, I really like putting all of the pieces together and it becoming my own sort of vision, even though somebody else wrote it. That's kind of what I like when I watch movies, so that's the reason. But if you really want to know, I can tell you.
Okay, I think we have time for one more. Well, let's go right here.
Was there any part of Olive's character that was influenced by your background and your family, or was some of it written in by like your Mila, or was it just like experience?
No, nothing was in the part of Olive. Nothing was added for Mila other than that she became a Ukrainian when she got cast. She really could have, as long as she was from another country, that was in America. That was the important part of the story, that she was truly an outsider. There's things that happened. I came to Oklahoma and there was a guy who turned to me when he heard that I wasn't from the United States, and he said to me, "Do you raise the American flag?" And I said, "Excuse me?" And then he said, "We're at war," and then out of that came the fiddle-dee-dee and all that stuff from the, what? Gone with the Wind. Thank you. That is no food and a lot of caffeine. So I'm sorry that I blanked on that. But so those things happened to me. It's more the whole notion of, I'm a total movie nerd. So I know I watch movies obsessively, and so a lot of the influences, I can go sit here for 5 hours and tell every frame and things and stuff, and particularly references we make to movies throughout. And my DP and I shot listed for a long time via Skype because he was in Amsterdam and I was in New York, and so it's very influenced by film, and I am very much influenced by film. So in that sense, but no, I'm not like that. I'm not a con artist, just some type of, I guess, but. Yeah, it's different. It's very different. I come from a very different background than Olive. It's really not my story.
You want to do one more for Rory? Anybody have one for Rory right here?
How is it to work with Mila again?
How is it to work with Mila again?
We hadn't seen each other in quite some time, so it was good. I mean, she's a hard-working young lady. She's got a beautiful child. I don't know if you saw that movie Stone. Have you seen that movie Stone? She was in. It's this independent movie, little thing. It was actually De Niro's in it, and Edward Norton. And she's excellent in it. But she just straight up told me one day, she was like, all I care is I want to be good. 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 And I appreciate that. You know what I mean? I appreciate that kind of enthusiasm.
The festival was really sweet. They just played Dazed and Confused while we were sitting in the bar waiting, and GoldenEye. So Dazed and Confused for Rory, GoldenEye for me.
Very, very nice. The movie opens up October 13th? 12th. October 12th. So you guys got to see it way before anybody else, which means you have several months to tell everybody how wonderful it is. And please make sure and turn in your ballots on the way out. Let's give a big hand to Famke Janssen, Rory Cochrane. Thank you very much for coming to the Dallas International Film Festival.